Well, we are halfway home in this opponent series. In part 6, I'll preview the 2013 North Carolina Tar Heels, whom we visited up in Chapel Hill on October 17th, a Thursday night game on ESPN at 7:30. Now, here's what you need to know about the Tar Heels. They're coached by Larry Fedora, who enters his second season in Chapel Hill with the Tar Heels. He led them to an 8-4 season and won the Coastal. But because of NCAA probation, they were ineligible for the ACC championship game. Now, he was hired in January of last year after 4 years at Southern Miss, where he went 34-19 in his tenure there, which includes a 12-2 finish and a Conference USA championship in his final season in Hattiesburg. In Fedora's last 2 seasons, they made unbelievable strides on offense, defense, and most important of all, wins. Think about this. His first team at Carolina seemed more poised and were more comfortable in his offense than he had in his final 2 years of Hattiesburg. Bottom line, they were already ahead of schedule. Now, to put Fedora's success into perspective, let's look at what he did when he was at Southern Miss in his last play from 2008 to 2010. In 2008, after a 2-6 start, they won the final 5 games to go 7-6. And that year, the offense started to really start clicking. They would break a school record with 398 points, only to have that broken the next year in 2009 when they scored 428 points. Then 479 in 2010. And in 2000, in his final year, in 2011, they scored 512 points. Now, that's the main reason Carolina brought him in. When you look at the resume of this man, his offenses got better in year 2 and year 3. Whether it be at Oklahoma State when he was Mike Gundy's offensive coordinator from 2005 to 2007, being on Ron Stook's staff in Gainesville, where he was the offensive coordinator in his final year in 2004, at Middle Tennessee State from 1999 to 2001, and other assistant experience being at Air Force and Baylor. Carolina was sending a message. They were going to compete for ACC titles and be a national power in football again. Now let's break down the Tar Heels. Offensively, look, you're not going to replace Gio Bernard with just anybody. He left for the NFL 2 years early and was drafted in the 2nd round by the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, to fill those shoes is going to be very, very tough. But they do get nice pieces coming back to fill his shoes, but it's not going to be easy. A.J. Blue, Romar Morris are going to be the ones to try to win that job at running back, but most likely it'll be Blue that wins the job there. Though, don't be surprised if later in the season it's more by committee with Blue, Morris, sophomore Travis Riley, and true freshman T.J. Logan. But again, there's 2 big issues that are going to have to get addressed here. You don't replace Gio Bernard with just anyone. Let's make no mistake about that. And they have to replace 3 starters on the offensive line, which I'll talk about next. Now, how far does their running game drop off? And there's going to be a drop-off this year. Let's make no mistake about it, folks. That's going to hinge on how quickly everyone steps up and how quickly everyone produces in their new roles. Now, speaking of the offensive line, let's get a little more depth about that. Last year they had 3 seniors there, and they allowed the 9th fewest sacks in the country with just 11. However, in 2013, they must replace 3 starters. Jonathan Cooper, who went to the Arizona Cardinals in the 1st round, was one of the best offensive linemen in the country. Travis Bond went in the 7th round by the Minnesota Vikings, and Brennan Williams went in the 3rd round by the Houston Texans, both on the right side. However, they do get back senior left tackle James Hurst, who's easily a first-team All-ACC player, and junior center Russell Bodine, who's becoming more of a vocal leader on that line. But to fill those huge shoes left by those 3 seniors, they're going to look to Landon Turner at right guard, who's a sophomore, like they did in the final 4 games of last year because Williams got hurt, and redshirt freshman Caleb Peterson, who will have the huge task of filling Cooper's huge shoes at left guard, barring any developments during fall camp. Now, at right tackle, it'll be up to junior Nick Appel to step up and produce. Now, as for Peterson, when you have an All-ACC first-team player like Hurst next to you on the line, he should be able to make the quick transition to a starting job and shine pretty well in there. And when you add a leader like Bodine on that line, the interior is going to look very good. If there's a downside, and there's going to be one, it's that Peterson is raw. But you have to realize the right side of their line goes from extremely inexperienced at best to at best a minor concern. However, we look at the other side of the coin, the right side could be a major problem for the offense looking to continue to build that momentum they had last year on the ground. Now, while Carolina's adding 4 recruits in time for fall camp, which includes a JUCO transfer, they are lacking depth here. And if anyone goes down, it could be big trouble in Chapel Hill. Now, let's move over to the passing game. Now, the passing game, that's unchanged. However, they did lose only a nice possession receiver in Eric Highsmith, who was an undrafted free agent with the Minnesota Vikings. But as you can see, overall, they're liking Fedora's system and they believe in it, which is very important. They have experience coming back, running that offense in Bryn Renner. He's a senior, and this is his 3rd season as the starter. He comes in as one of the best quarterbacks in the country. In 2012, he was outstanding, except for some mid-season doldrums in ACC play. And coming into this senior year, he has a chance to break every major passing record in school history, and that's saying something. He already has the top 2 single-season touchdown records and had a career-high 28 last year. He also set a new school record for total offense at 3,394 yards. He is the most efficient quarterback in ACC history, 154.59. You want evidence of this? Look at the Louisville game last year. He went head-to-head with Heisman candidate Teddy Bridgewater in September, and he only got better as the season went on. In November, he was a monster. In 2013, this guy could maybe be a top 5 quarterback in the country. Now look at the weapons Renner has back. They have sophomore Quinshaw Davis, who had 770 yards on 61 receptions, and junior tight end Eric Ebron, 40 receptions for 625 as their main weapons, with the latter being Ebron, an All-American candidate, right on the cusp of that, after a strong first season as a full-time starter at tight end. Now as for Davis, he's the leader of their wide receiver corps. Now after him, you have junior Sean Tapley, sophomore Kendrick Singleton, sophomore TJ Thorpe, and juniors Nick Platt and Roy Smith. With what the other wide receivers lack in proven production after Davis and Tapley, they make up for it in being comfortable with Fedora's offense. And there's only one senior there. This is going to be a very dangerous core to deal with in 2013. Now, they don't have the possession receiver like they did with Highsmith last year. So it'll be up to incoming freshman Jordan Filatiao and Jonathan Howard to step up and fill the role Highsmith left behind last year. And that's be the guy to be the true downfield threat to make opposing defensive coordinators have to respect the slot guy more, not focus just on Davis and Ebron. Now let's turn over to the defense. Now, as great as their offense was, the same cannot be said about their defense, especially the last 4 games of last year, where they were just horrible and horrendous. This area needs plenty of work to build the confidence back up in them. Now, their strongest area is the secondary, which has all 4 primary starters back. Their front 7, though, has to replace a starting tackle, a stud middle linebacker, and 2 hybrids, an end linebacker and a linebacker/safety. On one side of the coin, they have to replace major talent and production off of here. On the other side of the coin, these same starters couldn't do squat to halt that second half skid last year. However, you don't replace guys like Sylvester Williams, who went 28th overall to the Denver Broncos, and Kevin Reddick, who was an undrafted free agent by the New Orleans Saints, with just anyone. At the same time, they are more familiar with defensive coordinator Dan Dish's unorthodox system. They do have coming back on the line senior Kareem Martin, who had 15.5 tackles for loss and 40 tackles, and senior defensive tackle Tim Jackson, with Jackson moving over to fill Williams' huge shoes on the inside. Now with Jackson moving over, that opens up a spot for junior Sean Underwood, who was Jackson's understudy, but the question has to be asked here. Can Jackson, Underwood, and juniors Ethan Farmer and Devontae Brown even come close to duplicating the sort of disruptive presence Williams brought to the defense in 2012? The bigger issue is the lack of size on the inside. Now think about this for a moment. They only have 1 returning lineman over 300 pounds, and that's Underwood. However, they'll have Greg Webb to be the other, who's an incoming freshman. Even if this defense is built on speed, they have to really stand tall at the point of attack and not get pushed around by bigger and more athletic offensive lines. But if there's any good news, is that Martin is good enough to have the front 4 get on his back. But he's going to need others on that line to step up and produce. Now let's move over to the linebacker core. It's going to be up to sophomore Shaquille Rashad to fill the shoes left by Dion Guy as the hybrid end linebacker for Carolina. Now this is a role that he'll do very well at because of his speed, agility, and overall athleticism. But you would But you would have a converted linebacker in this role. But if they see something in him that makes them believe he could be a full-time starter, it'll be because he has enough speed to harass skilled players off the edge, though he's been on the light side. But you add to the fact that junior Tommy Hefferman had 73 tackles and 8.5 for loss last year, being back on the weak side, and they can devote this fall camp to locating a replacement for Reddick up the middle. Now, something they'll have to look at here is to move either Hefferman or Travis Hughes to the middle. That way they'll allow them to have the two most experienced linebackers on the field. Now, the other option they're considering, though less likely this happens, is to give the job to one of two redshirt freshmen, either Nathan Staub or Dan Mastro Mateo. As it is now, they seem inclined to start Hughes or Hefferman on the weak side, with the reserve still playing a big role, and have inexperienced replace one of the best linebackers in the ACC in Reddick. Now, there's going to be a drop-off there without question. Now, as for the secondary, everyone comes back, as I said before. And this could be one of the better units in the ACC. Injuries were an issue back in the spring. However, their starting four should remain the same. You have senior Javari Price and junior Tim Price at cornerback, senior Trey Boston at free safety, and you can have either sophomores Sam Smiley or Darren Rankin at the strong safety. Most likely, I think it'll be Rankin. But when you look at their safeties, this group is loaded with talent. The hybrid spot is either going to be shared by Gene Robinson and Pete Mangum last year. This year will be held by junior Brandon Ellaby, who's a former safety that moved to the position following last season's scheme change. Ellaby's coverage experience is key because their hybrid acts more like a fifth defensive back than a third linebacker. So that's something you're going to want to watch this year on defense. Now let's go to special teams. Okay, first, losing Casey Barth is huge. And filling his shoes is going to be a very tough act. But the one they'll turn to here to fill those huge shoes left behind by Barth is junior Thomas Moore, who was just 2 or 3 in limited duty a year ago. However, they do get junior Tommy Hibbert back at punter. Now, some will say he's the best punter in the ACC, though Duke's Will Monday will have something to say about that. They do get Tapley back on kick returns, which gives them a nice field position asset. However, when you lose a home run threat like Bernard, that's going to be a big drop there. Now, let's go to the closing comments on Carolina. When you look at their schedule, right off the bat, they have to go to Columbia for a meeting with Mr. Clowney and company on a Thursday night. After that, they have Middle Tennessee State in their opener at home. And after a bye week, go to Atlanta, play Georgia Tech before going back home to play East Carolina the following week. And then they're back on the road the following week to play in Blacksburg against Virginia Tech. Now, after the second bye week, we come to town for a Thursday night game, and 9 days later, they host BC. After the Eagles game, they go back on the road to Raleigh to play NC State before coming back home to host Virginia. Now, after the Cavaliers leave Chapel Hill, they make the trip north to ACC newcomer Pittsburgh to close the road portion of their schedule. They close with Old Dominion and Duke at home. I have to tell you this. When I look at that schedule, this team can win 10 if they steal a game or two early. Well, will they do it? I'm going to say probably not. In 2012, I'm going with 9-3 for North Carolina. In 2013, I'm sorry, I had 2012. 2013. In part 7 of the series, I will talk about the Wake Forest Demon Deacons.